this should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Jorge Edwards, Fantasy and Frames, and we at Fourth and Frames proudly present to you the Fantasy Football Tag Team Champions of the World, Rhett Manuel, Aidan Weingardner, and Kyle Ziegler, Fourth and Frames. And tonight, we're going to give you a must draft, a bust, and a value-based player based on their ADP for every team in the AFC West. So we're locking in on the AFC West tonight, guys. And do not forget to like, subscribe, and review to catch anytime a new podcast or short from us here at Fantasy and Frames drops. You can also search for all the podcasts here at Fantasy and Frames by name wherever you listen to podcasts. And for us, go ahead and lock in on that Fourth and Frames subscription wherever you get them in. And lock in at fantasyandframes.com for the latest IDP Dynasty rankings, articles, takes, news and notes. Steve Hungarter coming out saying, "Don't blame me if the last show went too long, LOL." Steve, since you're saying that you're not the one to blame, we're going to blame you, but it's all good. But right now, let's go ahead and let's just ask you, Aidan.
Yep.
I like to give you a hard time. I like to tell you weird things on Twitter, but it's always out of love. So I need to always ask you out of love. How are you tonight, man?
I'm great. That was some intro, the whole tag team bit. That was awesome. Yeah, we did my obviously the division I love the most, the AFC East last week. I'm really excited to get in the AFC West tonight because all these offenses should be really fun to watch and invest in for fantasy football purposes. I'm sure Kyle would agree, but I'm really excited for tonight.
And Kyle Ziegler, the world's biggest Zamir White fan, am I right?
Yeah. That was me last year.
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Glad to be here. It is Scott Fish Bowl weekend, I guess, coming up here for my live draft on Saturday in Orlando. Looking forward to that. Always a good time, always a good weekend. And here tonight, I am ready to get it popping here for the AFC West.
Rhett special there.
I love it. That's the Chris Battistell special. But guys, I know we're supposed to get straight into the AFC West, but it is one of my favorite times of year right now in the NFL. No, not Scott Fish Bowl season. No, not Dynasty season. No, not talking about way too early redraft ranking season. No, ladies and gentlemen, it is uniform unveiling season in the NFL right now. It is probably my Super Bowl in terms of the offseason. Yes, even more than fantasy football. I just love the uniform drops. So, Aidan, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. We've all seen the Washington Commanders throwback alternates today. I think it's probably the best alternate in the league. What are your thoughts on those?
You're going to hate me for saying this. I might get flamed. They're not terrible. I think they're just okay. Like, I don't think they're like all that everyone cracks them up to be, if that makes sense. I'm not I understand the whole like calling back to the Super Bowl era and all that stuff. I think I'm not crazy about the color combo. Like, I don't know. Something just looks off to me about it. Maybe in season when they wear them the few times, I'll get used to it, but I'm not crazy about it right now. Right now, I just think they're okay. I realize that everyone loves them, and I might be alone in that, but.
Aidan, you are aware that this is the exact same color combo that the Washington franchise has always used, correct?
I know. Yes, I know. I'm talking about these throwbacks specifically, though. They're just something that looks just off about it to me.
And then, Kyle, I'm going to go to you, and this is going to be biased for me, but a few years ago when the Saints dropped those color rush black helmets, I was probably as angry as anyone at that abomination of fleur-de-lis going down the middle of it, which could have been a very solid helmet. They dropped that 180 today, and ladies and gentlemen, we're so back in the uniform game. The helmet stripe down the middle with the subtle fleur-de-lis, the gold flakes inside of the white helmet. Oh, I'm already got combinations dancing in my head right now. What are your thoughts on them?
Dude, I'm going to totally disappoint you.
Oh my God, you both terrible.
No. I didn't see them. You didn't put in the show sheet for me to look at it. I was busy today. I had no idea you were going to pop that. I don't even know what they look like.
Did you not know did you even see that they came out?
No, not
a clue. No idea.
I'm father of 2 girls. They're running around the house. I did not look at the uniforms. I'm sure they look lovely, though, Rhett.
Google
They're just new
Google it
helmets.
after the show. It's something special. So, you like I said, just so much fun whenever these uniforms drop and everything. But guys,
You know, talk about the Titans. So that's the best throwback in.
Yeah, but that already happened.
Well,
guys, let's get off the uniforms because that's not why people are here.
Just
They're
brush
here to
past.
talk about the AFC West. And when we're talking about our must, bust, and value players, we're talking about players that we think are going to either achieve their current ADP ranking, go below their current ADP ranking, or provide very good value based off of their ADP. And we're always using that Fantasy Pros expert consensus ranking, and we are going half PPR. And so we're going to start at the top of the AFC West with the team that has run that division for as long as I can remember, the Kansas City Chiefs. We know what to expect with the Kansas City Chiefs by now. Andy Reid's going to have this offense cooking. Patrick Mahomes is going to have them in the playoffs inevitably. Travis Kelce is going to take about 6 or 7 games off during the season and inevitably come alive at some point whenever it matters most. We just know it's going to happen with the Kansas City Chiefs football-wise, but we're not talking real football. We're talking fantasy right now. So, Kyle, I'm going to start with you and go ahead and tell us who your must-draft Kansas City Chief is for the 2025 season.
It's got to be Patrick Mahomes, right, at quarterback 6. I mean, this is a massive discount getting him at QB 6, and it's mainly because of how he finished last season, which was quarterback 12. I'll gladly take him here at this spot because the perception of him being a dink and dunk passer is a little bit flawed. Was his A.dot low? Sure, 6.7, third lowest among qualifying quarterbacks with at least 200 attempts. It was pretty bad. It's pretty low, but it doesn't tell the whole story. The wide receivers were banged up. Rashee Rice, of course, and Hollywood Brown. The band is back together. They've got a very deep wide receiver roster. And you know what? Baker Mayfield, his A.dot wasn't much better at 7.0. Nobody complained about him when he was right behind Joe Burrow at quarterback 4 last season. And Mahomes does take deep shots. He just picks and chooses when he does. He was quarterback 15 in air yards. However, according to Zach Kiefer from The Athletic, who covers the Chiefs, Andy Reid has made it clear in camp. He wants Mahomes getting back to pushing the ball down the field. And when Mahomes pushes the ball down the field, boys, he is a fantasy darling. In 2021, he had the 7th most air yards and finished QB4. In 2022, he was 4th in air yards, finished QB1 with that season where he had 5,000 yards. This is a great spot, in my opinion, to land Patrick Mahomes outside the top 5 at the quarterback position.
Hey, now I want to go ahead and ask you this because one of my favorite Twitter accounts is the Coach Speak Twitter account, where they basically rate how much Coach Speak is actually going on with a coach on a given sound bite. So
yeah, me too.
We have a few years of a track record of Patrick Mahomes being the guy Kyle tells us he's not going to be this season. It's gotten to the point where he's 100% right. People have almost swung the other way on Patrick Mahomes, where it's like we expect less of him. And yet here he still is at quarterback 6. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask you, at quarterback 6 in this ECR, and in your opinion, is Patrick Mahomes overrated, underrated, or properly rated?
Yeah, I think QB6 is properly rated. I don't think this is some huge discount. I don't think this is some huge reach. I think if you take him here, it's fine. My worry is just if we look at the sample size over the last 2 years from a fantasy perspective, crazy to say, real life football is great, but fantasy has been just kind of average, even a game manager at times. Yes, could it improve with Rashee Rice coming back, which I'll talk about in a minute. And Xavier Worthy opening up the downfield shots, although last year the chemistry, whether it was Worthy himself, the chemistry between Mahomes and Worthy, it just didn't really seem to click at any point, even late in the year with that Super Bowl big game, obviously. And then Travis Kelce is slowing down, so I worry that the Chiefs, this will be too spread out and Mahomes won't have a number 1. So to answer your question, I think this is appropriately valued at QB6. I have no issues with taking him here. I think it's perfectly in range of what I would do.
And I'm a little bit lower on him, I'm going to be honest, because if I look at these last 2 years and how eerily similar they are in terms of production, I just don't see where we just go back to being the guy he was in 2022, where he averaged 25.1 fantasy points per game, as Kyle mentioned. Because in 2023 and 2024, it was 597 attempts versus 581, 4,184 passing yards versus 3,928, 67.2 versus 67.5, 7 yards per attempt versus 6.8, 27 passing touchdowns versus 26 passing touchdowns. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we've got a level of consistency right now that he just might be who he is right now in this current iteration. And it's not about fantasy points for the Chiefs, if that makes sense.
That's all fair
I agree.
point. Yeah.
I'm lower on him too, but
let's go ahead and let's move into Aidan's bust player. You kind of just mentioned it in passing just now, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the opportunity to let us know. We've been playing this will he, won't he game with this receiver for 2 years now. Will he be suspended? Will he not be suspended? Is he going to come back from injury? Will he be healthy? Will he not be healthy? Talk us through Rashee Rice at wide receiver 16 and why you think that's not happening this year.
Look, Rashee Rice is at wide receiver 16 ECR right now, and I think that's just a gross overvalue. And if you take him there, right around there, that's a gross overpay. I understand it's sounding less and less likely that Rashee Rice will be suspended for the legal issue or issues, rather, this season at least. Okay, great. I understand that it sounds like with all the injuries he sustained last year that he was dominant in the 3-game sample size we saw, and he will be ready for week 1. But excluding all that, let's just look at on-field role. In my opinion, this is going to be a very spread out passing attack. And if you look, Rashee Rice compared to Xavier Worthy specifically, at least how they're used in this offense, they're very similar type players. Maybe Xavier Worthy's a little more downfield explosiveness, but in terms of role and just where they work at best in the middle of the field, they're very similar. And I'm not sleeping on rookie Jalen Royal stepping up a bit in this offense either. And what if the Chiefs want to get their running game going with Isaiah Pacheco again leading the way and the explosive Brashard Smith and Elijah Mitchell? I just can't get behind a wide receiver 16 ECR and ADP when it's going to be so spread out, in my opinion. At least 1 week it could be Rashee Rice, sure, but 1 week it could be Xavier Worthy, 1 week Travis Kelce, the running game with Isaiah Pacheco, and then you have Patrick Mahomes not really being a fantasy star, even close to it the last couple of years. So I just think this is an egregious ECR. I don't know what Kyle, Rhett, you guys think, but I think this is just too hard to tell right now in the preseason stuff, too spread out nature, in my opinion.
And I agree with you in the fact that the Chiefs offense does look like it's going to be spread out. But Kyle, wouldn't you agree that that's kind of always been the case with the Chiefs offense?
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes, he shares the ball with everybody. He does. He throws it all around the yard. Kelce will get his. Rice will get his. 1 week it'll be Hollywood Brown now that he's healthy. That's just how Patrick Mahomes rolls. I mean, everybody gets a piece of that pie.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the question becomes, I mean, if you had to, before I talk about my value guy, I'm going to go around the frames real quick. And Kyle, I'm assuming you've already said that your must-have guy in this offense is Mahomes. So Aidan, who would you consider to be your must-have player in this Chiefs offense in 2025?
Can I take the easy answer and say there isn't one? Like, is that fair to say?
Sure, but why not?
There's guys I like. I'm warming up to Isaiah Pacheco, and I have my concerns with Worthy and Rice. I'm warming up to Travis Kelce, though he is aging, but I don't think he's like some top 5 to 7 fantasy tight end anymore. So there's guys I like in him, there's guys I like in him understanding about, but there's nothing that I say, oh my God, I must come out and draft this player.
And see, that's where I disagree, because I'm going to go ahead and talk about my value right now, because you can get him so late, and he's currently rated as the running back 84. Aidan, be prepared to come out of some drafts late in rounds and get yourself from Brashard Smith.
I get it. I get the call.
Yeah. Because look, like I said, right now he is a double-digit value, and there's no need to really reach for him. And if you look at playerprofiler.com and they give you the different ADPs across different platforms, I'm currently an underdog. He's 17th round in best ball drafts. He's 17th round in Dynasty startups. But the one that is most interesting to me and the most telling one, FFPC players tend to play for thousands of dollars, like $5,000 buy-in fees. Like if you're familiar with it, you know what it is. He's going currently in the 12th round in FFPC leagues. So that's where your sharp money's going. And if sharp money is looking at things and saying Brashard Smith has serious potential as a mid to late round dart throw, that's a place I'm looking at and I'm going, oh, that's interesting. And I get it when you look at his college profile, because outside of that senior season at SMU, it doesn't look like very much, because he doesn't break out with the 1,300-yard rushing season until his senior year.
Well, he was also a wide receiver at Miami before that. So,
which we're going to talk about that as well, too, because at Miami, during those seasons, despite the fact that he didn't have that much of a role, he showed his ability to catch the ball. And he managed 20-plus receptions in 3 of those 4 seasons in college ball. I think he had 39 in his last season at SMU, and he had a 30-catch season at Miami as well. So he's shown the ability to squeeze the ball and get upfield. He's got that breakaway speed. He's got that 4.39 40-yard drop. Yes, he is under 200 pounds. I get it. He's not a big running back. He's not a bell cow back. He's not any of those things that you really are going to say he's a guy that I can plug and play as my running back one every week. I understand it. But you're rostering this guy because he's nothing like anything else the Kansas City Chiefs currently have within their running back room. Pacheco, we know he's their number one. He's a roster spot. He's going to get 60% of the snaps or whatever it is. There's probably a running back 2 battle between Kareem Hunt and Elijah Mitchell. I don't think both of them make the roster, because I think Brashard Smith is going to make the roster. None of those guys, whether it's Elijah Mitchell and his injury problems, Isaiah Pacheco, though he runs violently, doesn't really break a whole bunch of big plays, and Kareem Hunt is what he is at this point. It's low-hanging fruit whenever I say this. But the last time Andy Reid had a guy who he could rely on to catch the ball, Jerick McKinnon was a very big part of that offense.
We joke about it, but like he had that one stretch down the stretch a couple years ago where he was a legit league winner.
Like Jerick McKinnon had some very good fantasy seasons, whether it was San Francisco or Kansas City or whatever it is. Andy Reid has another guy like that now, and you're gonna have to have a very hard time convincing me that Brashard Smith wasn't brought in for that specific reason. And I think that's interesting. So if there's a guy at running back 84 that I know Andy Reid has a track record of using this type of guy, it's something I'm paying attention to, and it's something I'm trying to get late in drafts for sure.
Yeah, my only worry with this, I don't even want to call it a concern, because this is running back 84. If he's not good after the first couple weeks, okay, great, cut him. But my only worry with this is, how long does it take him to really get going? Because this is a guy you're probably going to have to stash for the first month or so. Because does he surpass Elijah Mitchell right away? Does he surpass Kareem Hunt right away? And will the rushing volume be there beyond Isaiah Pacheco and just this whole running game in general to support this take? I do like this call, but that would be my only reservation, if you will.
That's fair, but at the same time, you're playing with house money when you take him in the first place. You know, if you're in the 18th round of a draft and you take them in the 18th round and it doesn't work out, like you said, you cut them and you're done with it.
Yeah, it doesn't cost you anything at all. So
yeah, it's free money, so that's why I like it. So
I'm just pointing out the cons of why you would cut them after the first couple weeks.
And that's what we're here for. We want to give people both sides of the coin. So reviewing the Kansas City Chiefs, Kyle said his must draft is Patrick Mahomes. Aidan's bust is Rashee Rice, and my value is Brashard Smith at running back 84. Guys, let's move it over to the West Coast, as they like to call it, the best coast. Load up your offensive linemen as weapons. Put on your pleated khakis. Get ready to have a party, because, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to LA and we're rocking with the Chargers. And last year, it was a good time for me because coming into the draft season, I sat there and me and Mike Cash did a film breakdown of Ladd McConkey. And I'm just going to go around the frames real quick and ask both of you guys a quick question. Are any of you familiar with the Lonely Island character Shy Ronnie?
I don't even know what that is. Is that a show or something? I'm
all right.
very
So
confused. Here's another moment for you.
You know Lonely Island, right? Andy Samberg's rap thing that they do, and you don't know Lonely Island.
No, I can't say that I do.
Neither of you know.
So I'm not the only one. Thank you. It's not an age thing.
No.
Yeah. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. So if you don't know Lonely Island, this reference is lost on you. But there was a song on one of their albums called Turtleneck and Chain where Shy Ronnie is doing a bank robbery with Rihanna. And he talks real quietly. Big thank you. And he's talking real quietly. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Shy Ronnie, he gets excited. And Rihanna goes, uh-oh, boner alert. And that was me with Ladd McConkey last year whenever I saw this tape.
Whoa.
So Ladd McConkey came out of the gate last year, and you could just tell whenever you watch the Senior Bowl workouts, you watch him on film, you watch how he moved, that he had high-end upside in his range of outcomes. And while he didn't get a world-beating amount of targets last year, that number ended up being 110 targets at the end of the season. What we ended up with was, I have to post this comment. Pause on boner alert. Good stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know we were going there, but okay.
But we ended up with a guy who maximizes opportunities and delivered in every single efficiency metric. So I pulled up the fantasy points data suite today. And what I did was I filtered out and every receiver who ran under 400 routes in 2024. I'm going to give you the Ladd McConkey breakdown and why he's a must draft for me. So in 2024, Ladd McConkey had an identical number of targets per route run as Jamar Chase. He had as many receptions as Terry McLaurin, more receiving yards than Terry McLaurin. He was only behind Justin Jefferson in yards per route run. He was fourth in yards per target. And for a guy who's 180 pounds soaking wet with quarters in his pocket, was eighth in missed tackles forced per reception. Translation. I'm going to keep banging this drum because I wholeheartedly believe it. Ladd McConkey is a baller. You do not take the ball out of a guy like that hand. And I know that you're going to get into discussing the wide receiver room in a little bit more detail in a little bit, Kyle. But at 110 targets and 82 catches last year, you're going to have a hard time convincing me that we are not getting more targets out of McConkey this year. So even if it's only a slight uptick, if it's 120 targets, if it's 130 targets, what's the ceiling on Ladd McConkey? And if he was doing that and inning as a borderline wide receiver 1 with 110 targets, and he's currently going as wide receiver 11, my argument is that you have top 5 upside with Ladd McConkey this year.
Ooh.
And that's something that we want to have in our back pockets, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I can't hate, and I mean, you're preaching to the choir. Also, you didn't even mention, but he broke records. Did you know that? He broke the Chargers rookie franchise record for most receptions and yards in a single season, held by Keenan Allen.
So
he also held a playoff record in the NFL wildcard playoff against the Texans. McConkey set an NFL rookie record for receiving yards in a playoff game with 197 yards on 9 catches. The dude is a beast. You're preaching to the choir, Rhett. I love him too.
I love that as well. So we're all with it. Yeah.
So look, I'm just so glad we are a pro Ladd McConkey podcast here because Kyle, I'm going to go ahead and ask you what your bust is right now, because what you're telling me right now, as much as you love Ladd McConkey, we could be getting a little bit convoluted here because you're telling me that there should be no bust on the Chargers offense, but rather you're going to tell us about a surprise player right now. So I need you to make the argument as to, number one, why this player is going to perform the way he does. And number two, how can Ladd McConkey both be dominant and have this guy eat at the same time?
Yeah, there's no bust on the LA Chargers because they've already busted out. The ADP reflects it. Quentin Johnston's hanging around wide receiver 65. Mike Williams is basically an afterthought. So who's left for Justin Herbert? To be a bust candidate? Najee Harris, O'Marion Hampton? We don't even know who the tight end is. We don't know who's starting yet. And that leaves Ladd McConkey as the other reliable target. We just talked about him. There's no way I'm going to say he's a bust. So I decided to flip the script. Instead of giving you a bust, the surprise player for the LA Chargers is a wide receiver flying under the radar and only has to beat out recently mentioned Quentin Johnston and Mike Williams for that wide receiver 2 role. Trey Harris is my sleeper to watch. Don't be shocked when he jumps both Johnston and Mike Williams and lines up wide receiver 2 across from McConkey. And the Chargers want playmakers, and Harris looks the part, man. The guy is 6'2", 205 pounds, perfect combo of size and speed, physical after the catch, wins those 50-50 balls, gives Herbert already a legit red zone option from day one. Don't let that current depth chart fool you, man. This rookie's coming. And Trey Harris backed it up in the SEC. Over 900 yards in 3 straight seasons. Anywhere, his yards per catch were anywhere from 14 to 18. That's not just consistency, man. That's explosive playmaking against top-tier competition in the SEC. When wide receiver 61, that's stealing. You're telling me, well, I'm getting all amped up here. You're telling me that I can get a potential starting wide receiver 2 with size, speed, SEC production, and red zone upside basically for free? Dude, I am drafting and stashing Trey Harris everywhere I can. And look, I'm not saying Trey Harris is going to finish as wide receiver 2, but I do think he could finish wide receiver 3 or flex. Oh, hell yeah. In that range, because I checked it out, in that range, he'd have to have 800 to 900 yards on like 50 to 60 catches, because that's where the wide receiver 3s were finishing last season. I honestly think he's got the skill set and the opportunity to get there. But look, even if he doesn't, drafting him for that ceiling and the end of the rounds, to me, is a perfect dart throw. Watch out for Trey Harris.
I love that take. And one thing I was going to mention, and then my man Moggs got in the comments, and he stole the thought right out of my head. You were mentioning who's the Chargers tight end going to be. You know, we have some Will Dissly, we have some Tyler Conklin, but Moggs hits the nail on the head with Rondé Gadsden being a good dart throw sleeper. An athletic guy who you talked about production profiles. Sophomore season had 61 catches for nearly 1,000 yards and 6 scores. His senior year had 72 catches on 112 targets for 922 yards and 7 scores. This is a guy with a big conference production profile. Yeah, he's another guy that's free that probably doesn't work out. I'm sensing a theme of the type of player that I like to look at this week in the AFC West. But you want to talk about guys that do have that upside. Yeah, you're right. It's a dart throw. It's probably going to be McConkey. It's probably going to be Trey Harris. But Rondé Gadsden, very interesting.
I agree. I like him as a late sleeper as well. I think he could be, maybe not right off the bat past the veterans, but I think by season's end, he could be the leader in that tight end clubhouse, if you will.
Yeah. And so, Aidan, it only makes sense for you to go where you're going right now. We've talked about Ladd McConkey. We've talked about Trey Harris. Somebody's got to get him the dang ball, and it's not going to be Taylor Heineke. So go ahead and talk about your value player.
No, it's not. If we're so high on Ladd McConkey, rightfully so, might I add, then why aren't we high on his QB as well? Justin Herbert sitting as QB 13 is very much undervalued in ECR, in my opinion, right now. Yes, everyone's going to say, oh, this is a run-heavy offense, so is Justin Herbert really going to have that fantasy upside and ceiling? Well, in my opinion, yes, because although this is a run-heavy offense with Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, the Chargers showed second half of the season last year, down the stretch of the season last year, that they can be a legitimately fast-paced pass-happy offense, and they just added Trey Harris. And people forget, even though the two running backs, they're going to be run heavy between the tackles with them, they're good to very good receiving backs in Najee Harris and Amir Hampton, especially Najee Harris. So while we're really high on Len McConkey, it seems like in ECR rankers right now that doesn't add up with Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert also has untapped rushing potential as well. I think he's legitimately like big, and he's a big, burly, like athletic dude. So I think they should use him more in those zone read, those read options by the goal line, those tush pushes, if you will, by the goal line. So this might be a hot take, but I think Herbert has top 5 fantasy QB 1 upside, in my opinion, just because of the nature of he has 2 very capable pass catching backs now, and they showed last year that Greg Roman is willing to throw it around the field and be a very fast-paced offense.
And getting into the profile of Justin Herbert, I mean, last year he averaged 7.7 yards per attempt. That was 11th among it. He had 17 money throws, which was 5th, and only 14 danger plays and only 8 interceptable passes. So you're talking about a guy who, number one, was throwing the ball downfield, was 4th in air yards, but also taking care of the football at a pretty good rate last year. So Brandon Howland, before we move into the Denver Broncos, has a question for us as to who wins the Offensive Rookie of the Year: Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Jaden Higgins, or Tyler Warren. Let's go around the frames and start with you, Kyle.
Man, you know how bad I want to say Cam Ward, but I can't do it. I really loved Jaden Higgins, but man, this one's actually tough. You know what? Man, is it Travis Hunter? Jaden Higgins? It's one of those two. Oh, man, this one's really tough.
You're forgetting somebody.
Well, I don't think it's going to be
Tyler. No. Brandon said it's the all AFC South version.
I'm going to go, I hate to say it, but I'm going to go with Jaden Higgins on this one. Maybe I'm hating on Travis Hunter right now, but I'll have to take Higgins. I really like his profile. I like his setup there in Houston. They're going to be pass happy there. I think CJ Stroud's going to have a bounce back type year, and Higgins will benefit. But that's only man, that's so tough to say Offensive Rookie of the Year. If I have to pick one of them, I'll go with Higgins, but I don't think any of them will actually win it.
Well, this is the AFC South Rookie of the Year. So, Aidan, who's your AFC South Offensive Rookie of the Year?
AFC South. So, obviously, SNGNT is the guy. But if it's AFC South only, if we're going for more of a sleeper, I will go Jaden Higgins just because I agree. I think he'll be the wide receiver 2 there right away. I'm expecting a pretty massive bounce back from CJ Stroud.
No Bayshaw Tootin love from you guys? Come on now. You both disappoint me.
He's like RB3 right now on a very congested back.
Well, who you got, Rhett? Who would you take?
Among these 4, between Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Jaden Higgins, and Tyler Warren, I would probably say the guy with the best opportunity to make an immediate impact based off of the offense that he's in is probably going to be Tyler Warren. I'm not in love with it, but the opportunity is there. He's an athletic freak. Outside of Josh Downs, I'm not sure there's anyone and Jonathan Taylor, I'm not sure there's anyone I particularly trust
Michael Pittman
in that Colts offense. Michael Pittman is a glorified tight end at this point, playing on the outside. So, I mean, Tyler Warren has to be my pick in that situation.
I just wanted to get my boy Rhett involved a little bit.
You got to distribute the ball like a good point guard does. Absolutely.
Kyle with the nice transition.
And Mogg says we're going to be chasing that high from CJ Stroud's rookie year. Hopefully not for the rest of our fantasy careers, not on his, but I do think he bounces back this year as well, too. So, speaking of bouncing back, last year the Denver Broncos, ladies and gentlemen, went from 0 to hero and made the playoffs in the AFC. High hopes running in Denver. They signed Evan Ingram this offseason. They drafted a couple guys. They've got expectations there. They've got Nick Bonetta, who had a breakout year on defense last year. Denver starting to feel themselves a little bit. But let's go ahead and let's start with you this time, Aidan, and give us your must draft player, because I feel like you and Kyle are both going to have a little bit of explaining for yourself to do amongst yourselves and trying to convince me at the end of the day as to who the running back to own in Denver is going to be. So go ahead and make your case for RJ Harvey, Aidan.
So I like both running backs for what it's worth. At cost, you can take both. I'm sure Kyle will get to this in a minute, obviously, when he's up. But I'm going to go with RJ Harvey, who sits at currently ECR RB23 in the ranks right now. Yeah, I could. People are freaking out. Number one, people are kind of like freaking out about, can two running backs coexist together? The answer is yes in a Sean Payton offense. Just look at what he did. The most recent example is Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara in New Orleans with the Saints. He likes to get running backs going both on the ground and through the air with checkdowns and stuff. And number two, I think J.K. Dobbins could have more raw touches, more raw carries. But I think RJ Harvey will be more efficient on those touches and more efficient on those explosive runs. So even if he doesn't have as many raw touches as Dobbins, I could see him, putting up better fantasy numbers. And I don't want to say a lesser role, but in terms of from a touches perspective and value perspective, I could see. I think last year was a perfect storm for J.K. Dobbins. Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh, run heavy. They love to run the football, the offensive line, the whole scheme. I don't know if he'll repeat that ever again going forward. So while people are freaking out about both running backs, which one is to own, I'll take both, but I will take RJ Harvey for the youth. But two running backs can coexist in a Sean Payton offense. We've seen it time and time again in the past. So RJ Harvey is my must draft here.
All right, let's play a little game real quick, and let's play the game. Guess RJ Harvey's Dynasty Sleeper, Dynasty Startup ADP and Sleeper right now.
Quite the complicated name, but okay.
Yeah, so in Sleeper Startups for Dynasty, where do you think RJ Harvey's going right now, Kyle?
RB 17.
Okay, in terms of total ADP, what do you have him?
Oh, ADP. I guess that would be probably fifth, sixth round.
Okay. Aidan?
Startup
Dynasty, yeah.
I think for redraft, he's fallen a bit because of Dobbins, and for Dynasty, I think he stayed the same since the NFL draft. So I'll go firmly fifth round.
502.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right along there.
Yeah, but we're not a Dynasty show. We are a redraft show. And in case we're looking at it in terms of redraft and where he's currently going in FFPC, RJ Harvey's going also in the fifth round at around running back 20. So, Kyle, either way, you were right on the money with your guess on things.
Yeah, I just feel like RJ Harvey's a little bit rich. My value is J.K. Dobbins. I know it's not a popular take here, but look, he doesn't cost you but a bag of Skittles at RB 51. And look, Sean Payton seeked him out, guys. He seeked him out. He wined and dined him. That needs to be said. And Sean Payton is the king of using two backs. Rhett, as a Saints fan, Alvin Kamara on early downs, Mark Ingram, goal line, red zone, occasional spells for Kamara. But
they use three at times too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'll get to that one in Denver as well. But even with Kamara in his rookie season, he only had a 45% snap share to Ingram's 55% as a rookie. And even last year with the Broncos, he used a committee of backs. Javonte Williams had the largest load of 52.3% of the snap share. Jaleel McLaughlin was next with 28.2%. And Audric Estime, a rookie last year, by the way, rounded out the committee 16%. So as much as I love RJ Harvey, I mean, he played in my backyard at UCF. I have a lot of love for him, but he's honestly, for me in redraft, he's so rich at RB23. When they're going to use both, J.K. Dobbins is going to have a role. And at RB51, I absolutely love the value here. He's a bologna sandwich. He's cheap, reliable, not flashy. And if he doesn't hit and I'm wrong, well, you just go out and get yourself a boar's head ham right off the waiver wire.
I don't like bologna, so
I love this analogy of both a bag of Skittles and a bologna sandwich.
I'm hungry.
My man is hungry right now. So
can I add in on J.K. Dobbins quick?
Sure.
I just want to say one quick thing. I feel like J.K. Dobbins, because R.J. Harvey is going to emerge eventually. I feel like J.K. Dobbins is going to be the perfect sell high candidate after the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, just based off of what he did last year and people still holding on to that.
Huh. It's not a bad take. So we talked RJ Harvey is your must draft, Aidan. We talked about J.K. Dobbins as your value, Kyle. I want to play a little word association with you guys.
Yep.
So the first thing that comes to your head. Aidan, beginner's luck.
What do you like? Say that again. Sorry, you kind of cut.
All right, we're gonna play word association. Beginner's luck.
Denver Broncos.
Kyle, fool's gold.
New Orleans Saints.
Regression candidate. Bo Nix.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Feels like very pointed.
So that's where we're at with Bo Nix, in my opinion, in 2025. And yeah, you look at Bo Nix's profile last year, and the rushing upside 100% is there. So there is a very good opportunity, a very good chance that his floor is going to be limited because of that rushing upside. Whenever you have 400 rushing yards and you have 4 rushing touchdowns in a season, and you have that 500-yard rushing upside in your range of outcomes, yeah, it's hard to completely say that you're going to go ahead and not be a guy that's going to give you some kind of production. But with where Bo Nix is currently going, and I don't have his ECR ranking right in front of me, but I do know that he was quarterback 7 last season. This is a guy that had 29 touchdown passes and 22 interceptable throws. He had 25 danger plays and only 11 money throws in the season. So is this the type of profile that I'm going to bet on not regressing this year? Absolutely not. I think he's primed to be a guy that is going to disappoint someone if they draft him highly. Because here's the issue with him. In a league where teams increasingly are playing zone coverage, we can agree with that. The numbers these days are probably somewhere around 70% zone coverage. Bo Nix last season against zone coverage was the 33rd best quarterback in the league in completion percentage against zone at 61.5%. Bo Nix was the 38th best rated quarterback against zone coverage last year with a 73.3% rating. He was not good in those situations. Meanwhile, in man coverage, he was 8th in completion percentage and 5th in passer rating versus man coverage. So, what does this tell me? As someone who came into the year and came into the league last year and played in a whole bunch of spread offenses, you know what I don't think Bo Nix had to do a whole lot of in college? I don't think there was too much multiple. I don't think there were many 3-4 read progressions my man was going through in college.
A lot of screens and checkdowns.
I think he was asked to make quick decisions, get the ball out, and trust his guys, which is great when you average 6.7 yards per attempt and didn't push the ball downfield. Long story short, do I think Sean Payton played to his strengths last year? Absolutely. Do I think if he tries to do the same thing this year, that the league has a plan for that? Absolutely. He had 117 pressure throws last year. His entire profile was boosted by those 33 total touchdowns. So if you're going to tell me that a guy that averages less than 7 yards per attempt is not good against the zone, was 21st in the league in deep ball completion percentage, and was 27th in air yards per attempt, is the type of guy that screams maintaining that production in year 2, I would say you're outside your mind.
No, I mean, I really can't argue that. Those are very good points. He was also quarterback 24 and A.dot 7.8 yards. And he is quarterback 8, by the way. I know you were asking for that ECR. He's QB8, which does feel a little bit rich. I mean, he's right behind Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, guys behind him, Kyler Murray, Justin Fields. I know you don't like Kyler Murray, Aidan, but Justin Fields you like. Caleb Williams, also QB12. Justin Herbert, who you like, all coming after him. I mean, he makes a good point that you can get those guys later than Bo Nix.
Yeah, so the question is, what are we basing the Bo Nix hype off of, Aidan? Where do you think that's coming from? Why is he quarterback 8 right now?
I think the perception on Bo Nix has changed a lot. You mentioned a lot of screens of checkdowns in college, older prospect, and I think since he proved a lot of people wrong this year with such a great rookie season, especially down the second half and into the fantasy playoffs, I think people are still clinging on to those. You know, I'm somewhere in the middle of you guys. I think he's going to be a borderline QB1 this year, but I think people are still clinging on what they thought of him in college, and he proved a lot of people wrong in his rookie year last year, and I think people are still holding on to that.
For me, I just wish he was a little bit lower. I'd like to see him in that back end quarterback, not mid range.
100%.
I got him at QB12, so.
Like, you tell me Bo Nix is quarterback 11, quarterback 12,
quarterback now we're
10.
talking.
Like, I'm fine with it. Like, that's an appropriate value for a guy that flashed some upside, but got himself in some trouble and probably had an offense built around him, which is what a good coach does.
A lot of scheme throws.
Yeah, so throws were schemed for him. That's great. That's what you need to do as a coach. But scheme throws in fantasy football don't necessarily give us a very projectable outcome for this coming year because, like we said, he still got himself in a lot of trouble last year. So, for the Denver Broncos, before we get to our last team in the AFC West, we talked about RJ Harvey being Aiden's must-draft player, Bo Nix being my bust, and J.K. Dobbins being Kyle's value player. But speaking of busting, last season, the Las Vegas Raiders busted out, ladies and gentlemen. They hit the blackjack tables. They went all in. They hit on Zamir White. They hit on Gardner Minshew.
Oh.
And come to find out, all of those things were a bad recipe for success, and those gambles didn't pay off. So what did the Raiders decide to do this offseason? They reinvent the wheel. They hire Pistol Pete Carroll. They bring in Geno Smith. And happy days are here again, or at least the Raiders hope so. But Aidan, we gave you the easy job with the Raiders.
Not hard.
Your must draft player, I don't think. There's much more of a softball that we could give you. You need to slam this from 500 feet out of the park and tell us why Brock Bowers, at tight end 1, by the way, there's nowhere to go but down. So why is he still a must draft in your opinion?
So I think that Brock Bowers is worth a second-round pick and redraft this year. As I explained last week, the tight end show a couple weeks ago, I don't personally do that, build my rosters like that, but I totally understand why people would. I understand, yes, the Raiders added Ashton Gianti in the draft this offseason, but Brock Bowers is still Brock Bowers. He's still going to get a boatload of targets, a boatload of receptions, a boatload of end zone looks, and especially with Chip Kelly now, who, if we look at his past in both the NFL and college, he runs a very, very fast-paced offenses. So I think this Raiders offense is going to sneak up on a lot of people this year. I think they're going to surprisingly have a lot of red zone and end zone touchdown opportunities. And I think Brock Bowers is still going to get a lot of those scheme touches. So I'm just really high in this offense as a whole in general. I think Geno Smith, if Brock, my main point is, I want to emphasize, if Brock Bowers could do it last year with the carousel of Aidan O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, and Desmond Ridder even made a cameo there at the last week of the end of the season, then he could definitely do it with Geno Smith. So I'm higher than most on this offense as a whole I'm really excited for what Chip Kelly can do, and I think just Brock Bowers is like a generational talent, obviously. So yeah, that's my case for must have. Brock Bowers.
Yeah, but let's just break this down just really simply. Are we going to see 157 targets again?
No, but I think it could still be elite targets, like 120 to 130.
All right, so if he loses 30 targets in the season, which, okay, fine, there's still an elite target share there. If the Raiders are playing faster, I'd like to know where those touches are going to go. I have an idea of where they might go at the running back position.
Well, the Raiders look to have a really bad defense again this year, so they're going to be in a lot of shootouts, which obviously caters to Brock Bowers and the pass game weapons.
Yeah. But Kyle, we were talking earlier today, and I just need to ask before you get into your bust player. You mentioned that bowl of peppers you were going to have on the side because you were going to have a spicy hot take for us. Is it there?
I went to the grocery store and completely forgot to get it, but it's definitely here in the heart. I'm ready to unleash it.
All right, piss a few people off with this bust candidate.
Look, I know I'm going to catch some serious heat for this, but hear me out. Hear me out, though. Just all I ask you, hear me out. Ashton Jeanty is a bust at running back 4. Look, I love this kid. I think he's going to be special. I'm not knocking him at all. I'm knocking his ADP, okay? I do think people are getting lost in the sauce over a running back who dominated the Mountain West Conference, okay?
Wow, sorry.
I could point to the Fiesta Bowl where he faced a tough Penn State defense in the college football playoffs on the biggest stage. The box score shows he had a good game, a decent game. He had 104 yards, but that came on 30 touches with a 3.5 yards per carry. Plus, no touchdowns in the game, 2 fumbles, might I add. There's no room here for Jeanty to exceed expectations. At this price, he has to finish top 3 at the running back position to justify the pick. For all the Jeanty believers out there, this is like going to the casino, okay? And you're playing the slot machine. Sure, you might be right. You might hit the jackpot. But your odds are way worse than playing blackjack, okay? I like to play blackjack. If Jeanty finishes just as an RB2, just an RB2, owners who took him in the first round or at that RB4 spot are going to be so pissed. They're going to be so disappointed because at that price, expectations are sky high, and some will call him a bust if he finishes as an RB2. And yeah, Saquon Barkley, he crushed it his rookie year. He was the RB1 overall in 2018 in PPR scoring. But did you know that in half PPR scoring, he wasn't the number 1? That spot belonged to Todd Gurley in half PPR. And this is a half PPR discussion. So the truth is, no running back has ever finished as an RB1 in half PPR. And I know I'm being a little nitpicky with it. I get that. There were a few second-year backs like David Johnson, Devontae Freeman, Le'Veon Bell, who did finish as an RB1 in their sophomore season. But the rookies haven't done it. Again, I'm not saying that Jeanty is a scrub. I'm just saying that drafting him as an RB4 could be a bust. If he only finishes as an RB2 or flex, you can take him. Just be happy if he finishes there as a back-end RB2.
Wow. All right. So
you hate Ashton Jeanty.
I'm not hating on him. It's just I'm pointing it out that he's RB4 and he hasn't touched an NFL field and
I got him RB3, so.
Look, Aidan, Kyle, like, I kind of hear where you are right now, Kyle.
Oh, thank you.
Like, I understand it because I made the same argument last year with Marvin Harrison Jr. when everyone else was banging the drum and sending him to the moon. And I made the argument last season that in order for Marvin Harrison to justify his ADP, he would have had to have something like a 1,300-yard, 8-touchdown season, which would have put him among the top 5 wide receivers of all time among rookie seasons. So
and people were disappointed with Marvin Harrison after the season.
People ended up being disappointed with Marvin Harrison, despite the fact that he had, statistically, with 800 yards and 8 touchdowns, a solid rookie season as a wide receiver in the NFL.
And might I add, if you look it up, he mirrors his dad in his rookie season. It's kind of weird. His numbers, Marvin Harrison Sr., the dad, he had similar numbers if you look it up his rookie year, which is kind of creepy.
Which is
eerie.
Which is kind of the reason why I'm so high on Marvin Harrison Jr. this season, because I think that year 2 jump is going to be a very real thing. But that's an NFC West discussion for another day. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there in time. But all I'm saying is that people might see this Jinty take as a little bit chaotic, a little bit crazy. And Brandon is asking the question, were people disappointed in Marvin Harrison or Kyler Murray? Personally, I was disappointed in Marvin Harrison's usage last year because he wasn't put in a great position to succeed. But
role was weird.
At the end of the day, the numbers came back what they were, and he was a disappointment. So, not too many people are going to be are really smart players are going to look at the bigger picture and say, "Hey, maybe it was a Kyler Murray problem. Maybe it was a usage problem." And 90% of fantasy players, though, ain't digging that deep. Like, they are what they are. We're casual. We're having fun. We're playing with our friends. We're trying to have fun and draft the team that's going to make us smile the most.
They're not like us, but we do.
Yeah, like, we're dorks about this. And that's cool. I get it. I understand it. That's why we do a podcast on Wednesday nights. But by and large, people are going to gravitate towards that Ashton Jeanty type of player because he's got big name recognition. He's fun. They're going to see him ranked as a top 5 running back. They're going to know the name from being in the Heisman Trophy discussion. It's just going to be one of those things. Like, he's got name recognition, so he's going to be a high fantasy football commodity. And that's fine. But if we're saying proceed with caution, it's not saying that he's not going to be a good player. It's just saying, hey, maybe we can pump the brakes just a little bit on what the expectations are. And I've kind of been there all along. I've always thought that top 5 running back thing was a little too high. Kind of with the Bo Nix thing we just talked about. You give me Jeanty running back 8, 7, 9.
Smash.
Like, I'm in. I'm 100% in, but I'm not sure how much Jeanty I'm taking at running back 4, at running back 3, because if you're running back 4, then you're somebody's running back 1.
Mm-hmm.
So the bust is a hot take, but it's got some value. It's got some credence. Let's talk about this value in Jacoby Myers, currently going as the ECR wide receiver 40 in half PPR. And Aidan, you touched on the Brock Bowers hype, rightfully so. Like 157 targets, 112 receptions, like great season. There's a lot of Ashton Jeanty hype outside of Kyle. Rightfully so in a lot of people's minds. But have we forgotten just how steady Jacoby Myers was last season? Aidan, if I had to ask you at the end of the year without looking it up, what Jacoby Myers' season was, what would you guess it was? We know he doesn't score touchdowns.
In
but
terms
receptions and yardage.
Okay. I'll throw out the touchdowns aren't there. I'll throw out 50 for 880.
50 for 880. Kyle.
I'm going to be honest. I think I might have browsed past it, so I might be pretty close. I won't be spot on, but I think I'll be close. 87 catches, 1,076 yards.
Oh, I'm way off.
87, 1,027.
Okay.
I was way low.
On 1,281 air yards. So, guys, it's kind of an unspoken, underrated thing. But Jacoby Myers was wide receiver 19 last season.
Yeah, that is surprising.
He was wide receiver 19 last season, and he's going off as wide receiver 40. And Moggs brings it up. Everywhere he's gone, he's kind of produced. He's kind of quarterback proof. We mentioned the Brock Bowers thing with Aidan O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, Desmond Ridder cameo, Jacoby Myers was playing under those same circumstances. He had a 24.9% target share. And the thing is, at wide receiver 19, according to Player Profiler, he underperformed. His actual fantasy points per game in PPR were 14.5 fantasy points per game. His expected fantasy points per game was 18 fantasy points per game. So, my man left some meat on the bone last season. And I get it. Brock Bowers maybe takes a step back on targets this year. Ashton Jeanty probably absorbed some of these targets and checkdowns with Geno Smith. All things considered, I think everybody comes out relatively equal. Brock Bowers maybe comes down to 130. Jacoby Myers maybe comes down to 110. We lose some targets in the third wide receiver, so on and so forth. So Jeanty can absorb 60 or 70 targets. That's probably where we are this season. Jeanty probably catches around 45 to 50 balls, which is going to be a very good output for a rookie running back. He's going to have his 300 carries. The volume's going to be there for Jeanty. But all that to say, if you think that a guy that loses 20 targets, so he still ends up at about 110 targets for the season, how many 110 target players do you know in fantasy football that are finishing as a wide receiver 40?
Not any at all.
Not many. Not many, if any. So all I'm saying is that you're getting extreme value out of the Jacoby Myers bone this year. So even at 115 targets versus 129, we're still looking at what? 70 to 75 receptions? 80 receptions? Like, there's too much upside to ignore. And I don't care that he doesn't score touchdowns because it's never been his game. But in between the 20s, when Geno Smith needs a reliable guy, he needs a guy that he can dump down, can get 12 yards, and move the chains. Guess who's going to be there?
Jacoby Myers.
It's going to be Jacoby Myers. And he's going to smash based off of his ADP. And he's going to be a guy you want in your lineup at a flex spot every week because he's just always consistent and doing what he needs to be done.
Yeah, he's not the sexy pick, but he gets the job done. Yeah. Yeah, and he's a perfect bye-week replacement guy, or if you get an injury, you could plug him in and feel pretty good about having Jacoby Myers in, especially in a plus matchup. Maybe you get lucky and he scores in a soft matchup or something. But yeah, no, I like the call there, Rhett.
All right, so this is the best comparison I have for Jacoby Myers. It's not sexy. It ain't fun, but it gets the job done and it hits the spot in just the right way. Y'all ever went swimming as kids? Y'all went to a beach or a swimming pool and something like that. And at the end of the day, you're hot, you're sweaty, and mom breaks out the ham sandwich with the potato chips.
Oh, man, there's nothing better than a ham sandwich on the beach, guys.
Old-fashioned ham sandwich, yeah.
So look, it ain't sexy, but it gets the job done, and it hits a spot the way you need it to in fantasy football. Jacoby Myers is a beach ham sandwich.
So we both did ham sandwich references. I like it.
You said bologna.
Oh, but yeah. I threw the boar's head ham out there, though. You know what I mean about boar's head?
I like ham, so.
All right, guys. So before we get out of here, I want to do what we always do and come up with bold predictions for the division. Aidan, let's start with you in the Kansas City Chiefs. Quickly tell us your bold prediction for this team.
Yeah, I said my concerns with this being such a spread out offense for all players involved. My hot take for the Chiefs is both Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy finish outside of the top 30 wide receivers in fantasy football this year. Everyone's expecting one of these guys to emerge, and I just think they're going to be battling each other on a weekly basis. So once again, both Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy finish outside the top 30 fantasy wide receivers, and no one really emerges this year.
Translation: Aidan loves Hollywood Brown. Kyle,
no, I don't.
Los Angeles Chargers
at all.
I don't think this is going to be a shock to anyone considering my love for the rookie and Trey Harris, but he wins the number 2 wide receiver job, finishes as back end wide receiver 2, maybe a front end flex. And Rhett, you asked earlier about when I went into it about can two receivers on the same team really work out if Lab McConkey's doing his thing. Well, let me ask you this. Is it fair to say that Justin Herbert's passing yards as a floor, 3,000 total yards, maybe 3,500? So you mean to tell me that if he wins the number 2 job, he can't have 800 to 900 yards?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
He's going to win the number 2 job too, by the way. Well, what Quentin Johnson's going to stop him?
Right. So anyway, go ahead, Rhett.
All right, so I'm going to go to Denver Broncos. I already discussed that I thought Bo Nix was going to be a bust, and I already mentioned that I think he's being drafted too highly at quarterback 7. My prediction is that he takes a step back and finishes outside of the top 12 in fantasy quarterbacks here in 2025. I just think we're going to see an uptick in turnovers. I think teams are going to adjust. I think we're going to see a little more running the ball with J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. I just think that we are setting up for this offense to evolve and look a little more like those Sean Payton New Orleans offenses did, where, yes, while they had the reputation of throwing the ball all around the yard, at the end of the day, when the Saints were at their best in Payton's heyday, they were keeping the ball at 35 attempts a game and running it very effectively with multiple backs in the backfield. So I just think that might be where we're heading with the Broncos here in 2025, and Bo Nix to be negatively affected because of that. And Kyle, one more hot take for us. Take us home with the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, I'm gonna eat my last hot pepper here. I'm gonna double down on the Genty hate and say he disappoints and he finishes as an RB2. Look, if he struggled against Penn State to get 100 yards, then what's going to happen when he faces his opponents in the AFC West, who are all very solid against the run? The division is no cakewalk to run on. You got the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Chiefs for a third of your season. RB2.
Oof. Wow. So, guys, that's the AFC West. We went through all 4 teams, gave you a must, a bust, and a value. And before we get out of here, let's give you more value and let's talk about Fast Draft. And making sure that you're downloading the Fast Draft app and using our promo code FRAMES, which will earn you a first-time deposit match of up to $50 in credit. Invest 50, get 50, play with Matt Kelly's free money and see what happens with the Fast Draft app, ladies and gentlemen. They've got their Origins game where you draft only rookies. They've got Flex 4 where you pick your favorite players for the upcoming season. And they've got D-Up, which is just like that Flex 4, but with only IDP players. And it's fast, it's easy, it's a good time. They talked about it on Shoot the Gap. There's a 20-second timer, so you better have that queue ready. It's PPR formatted. It's 6-round best ball drafts for anybody who just likes to scratch that itch. Some of us just play fantasy football to draft. Not everybody's into setting their lineups and being addicts on a weekly basis. Some people just like to get in there and draft and see what happens, which is why the best ball format is blown up and why Fast Draft is such a great place for people to play when they're in a time pinch. So again, that is a promo code FRAMES, which will earn you that $50 credit on a first-time deposit. So start drafting faster and get the Fast Draft app. So guys, that's it for this week. We got the draft show. Scott Fish Bowl is going on right now. A lot of things, real exciting time in the fantasy football community. But we'll be back next week. And we're going to be talking about the home of the Cleveland Browns, ladies and gentlemen. The AFC North, where we will once again talk about those must, those bust, and those value players. Drew Scott will probably be back with us next week. But for now, you can find me at RManuel Sports on Twitter. You can find him at AWeingartner13. You can find my boy Kyle Ziegler. Call him Ziggy at KZ1180. I'm Rhett Manuel. We are 4th and Frames. Toodles.